Thank you for listening to the Piloways podcast. My name is Alex Fidalis, and on every episode of the Piloways podcast, we try to bring to you the stories, the trials, the tribulations, the victories, the losses of our fine artists and musicians, creative types, entrepreneurs, small business owners, usually located in the DC area, not exclusively, but mostly. We ask them to come on our show and tell their stories because we feel as though that will further embed us, the local DMV area, with their success. On today's episode, you're going to hear part 2 of an amazing couple of people. It must truly be, magical to be able to share with your loved one, your wife or your husband, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your soulmate, whoever, whatever gender that might be, or lack of gender. It must be great to share that creative energy with them. And Mary Alice and Pete have something special, and I'm honored that they came on the show and shared it with us. Without any further ado, first to the business. On today's episode, you're going to hear music from The Grand Candy, you're going to hear music from Taliban, and you're going to hear music from the Rabid Flash Mob. You'll also hear music from the band that you're going to hear the second part of their interview right now. The Electric Grandmother.
Yeah, I agree. You have to reach out. I think the whole, holier than thou stuff is thankfully on its way out, Right. I mean, nobody wants to hang out with or be around people who think they're better than you,
No, and I think that talent, sometimes is a way, and it's all mired up into the stage. I mean, you're up there, you're on a stage, and it's different in certain venues, where you're on the same level. But there is something to be said, and there's a tribalism to the idea of you being in front of the entire tribe, and you're standing at a higher level, and you are saying something that's louder than everyone else, and you can see why that does come with a sort of an adoration. But on the flip side, that could be any one of us, if we chose that path for ourselves, not to make it all hippy dippy.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and also I think it's a thrill, to be up there and to have people respond. I mean, don't get me wrong. So it's not a complete, it's good for your ego.
Oh,
it makes you feel good, But at the same time, coming off stage, and I feel like, get out of my face, or something,
It's funny too, because there's an unapproachability, right? And maybe you guys have this or don't. I don't know. I do. There are certain probably musicians that if I were to see them, I would be in awe, even for just a moment because of the experience. But I do have that. I think I do. I don't think I would drop to my knees and and start sort of bowing at any of them. But at the same time, there is that holy crap, because it's not about that person. It's about of all the other stuff. That's the band that I listened to when I had my first kiss, and that's the band that I heard in the car that time that we all got super stoned and went to go see the movies. There's all those things that are wrapped up into that, and then that's what you're actually in awe of.
Yes.
The emotions.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
No, the best example of that is my favorite band is a 90s punk band. It's Screeching Weasel. Are you familiar?
No, I don't know the Screeching Weasel.
The Screeching Weasel, they're two former members were at Insubordination Fest in Baltimore last year, and we'd kind of cultivated a relationship with both of them online. And one of them who's not so much a songwriter, but sort of a legendary original member, was there, and I was all Mr. Cool, hey, how's it going, John? How are you? And then the other one who is more of a songwriter, and in other bands that I've liked through the years, I had just had nothing to say to him. I was just, hello.
I tried to get you to say hello.
Yeah, it was embarrassing. I just had nothing to say.
And they're both just the sweetest guys, and Yeah, but as far as what you're saying, it's like these people are like the soundtrack of your lives, and you think of everywhere you were, and it all these, it all adds up. Everywhere you were, every experience you had, like when we first saw the band, well, one of the members, she was referring to wasn't in the band, but at the time, but the other guy was, and we saw him for the first time in Chicago, and it was just like, it was amazing, and it's just, and it was, they were a band that didn't tour much, for a variety of reasons, but like they, it was just after all those years of waiting, and like, it's a band that they're booking up multiple times, and just finally see them.
But it's also possible that like era is over of bands being like that. I could, because, I think a lot of times people will, well, first of all, I don't think bands have that kind of longevity anymore. It's like popular bands these days, and I don't follow music very closely
well, how
anymore.
would you even, like, there's no context anymore.
Exactly.
Like when you tell someone like, I don't follow popular music, you're like, what does that even
Even
mean?
me.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I also feel like bands, they don't, 5 years is a long time for a band to go on anymore. Like a big band, a band that you might hear on the radio or
Right.
see on late night TV. Those kinds of bands, they don't stick around.
It's there was a figure I saw the other day, like U2 at this point has been around for, I think 20 some odd years, I think 25 years, which is crazy, because then I think about the Rolling Stones, and I certainly remember when the Rolling Stones had been around for 25 years, or when that anniversary tour of the 25 years had gone around. And that sort of blows my mind, because now U2 certainly doesn't look like they've aged in the way that I definitely thought the Rolling Stones had, then, but, and I don't know if that has something to do with it, but there are these bands that actually have been around for like 10 years now, but time has gone so quickly that we don't really have any perspective.
That's
like,
a good point.
The Killers is a great example, and that's just the first one that I came off the top of my head. Like I'm not a big fan of their music, but they've been around now, I want to say, for at least 10 years, if not longer.
That's true, but what if their contemporaries have also? And because, like, I agree with you, it does not seem like 10 years.
Oh no!
But, yeah.
I'm just saying, like, what's amazing about that example, though, is that I bet we could think of a million bands that are their contemporaries who have been around now for 10 years, but I just have no gauge for what that distance means. And the way that music is released, I don't think of like if I think of Aerosmith, I can kind of gauge their albums. I'm like, oh, there was that one about the elevator, and then there was the one where the guy was dressed up like a lady, right?
Pump.
But like the Killers, I'm like, I know
Right.
that there was that one song, and then there was a bunch of other songs.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a two between Aerosmith and the Killers.
Well, of course.
As far as like
Yeah,
the
of course.
But yeah, I think as also, something that you said that, really struck a chord, and we talk about this a lot too, is like, when you're younger, older people look so much older.
Oh, yeah.
And now it's like, you end up, in our 30s, like, she and I are, and you just can't believe you thought people were that looked that old.
I know.
And
the 30s is such a great example too, because I remember seeing people in their 30s, and I was like, you are so old, And now I'm like 37, so like looking at 40, I'm like, oh shit,
Yeah.
like, this is fuck,
Yeah, maybe it's the kind of thing that we say that just to make ourselves feel better, but I really don't think it's as old as it used to be, because you look at movies from the 70s with people in their 30s
Those
and
people look like they were 90.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
People in the 70s looked old all the time.
Elliot Gould looked so old when he was like 20.
When it's dark out, you hear voices desire for a trace or whisper, but it's just your heartbeat on the air. Evangeline, oh, she calls you soft as a feather. To the rooftop, you like heat rising. Across the street now, your neighbor's stone house, lit up to watch like a TV. Evangeline in negligee shoes, she does that dance just you can see. She calls you soft as a feather. Feather arms soft, oh, how inviting.
His song, as far as our the characters go, would be like an early song of ours, Danny's Had a Wife, where I talk about how she died in an accident.
Oh,
But it's just, I know, right? That was really sad.
it was sad. Comes up every once in a while on the show, and it's always like,
But at the same time, it's like, the song itself is just like really upbeat. It's like a dance beat behind it, and it's just like, I mean, it was one of those songs that I just sort of improv'd. I didn't have anything written down. I just sort of said all this stuff, which is kind of a little, I don't do that as much anymore.
I don't know. I think sometimes the straightforward just presentation of what happened, which is your unique writing style, is sometimes in and of itself taking things down a peg and aggressive because it's so stupid.
Yeah.
Like, I think your blogs are more prone to that, but the first one I thought of was Baby Geniuses. It's like you basically talk about what's happening in the movie, but the movie in and of itself is so terrible that just describing what happens in the movie is a method of taking it down a peg.
Yeah.
there's there's an internet meme, I think, where you like say something and you go, "That's the joke."
Yeah.
And that's exactly it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
no, that's the joke.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
What about because when you're saying like you did a little improv at the beginning, like are you stream of consciousness? Do you like go in there, put the beat, have just a general idea of the song that you want to sing, and then go, or do you write? Tell me a little bit about the process.
Yeah, well, the original recordings, like early on, like that group I was telling you with my friends, we kind of did that more, and then like this first Let Your Grandmother tapes, and we just released this anthology of like these songs from 1999 and 2002. That's available on the Infinite Number of Sounds website for free. It's
Is that
like
the what's the name of that release?
Make a Joyful Noise.
Yeah.
Oh no, what's the one that it has audience in the title?
My Imaginary Audience.
My Imaginary Audience.
Yeah, that was like the first Electric Grandmother album proper that was like intended for people. To
Oh,
hear.
okay.
We put it on a CDR. So, and she did all the art. I don't know if you've seen it online, but
I
like, and that's sort of how that first tape was kind of more in that vein, and then after that, I sort of got down to like, okay, I'm gonna actually write a song, with parts, and it's gonna sort of flow a little better. And then, over the years, I've gotten better at it, and so it's cool because it sort of started from that, and then I'm always trying to challenge myself and outdo myself, but not in like a bad, stressful way, but in a happy, challenging way. Like see what else we can do.
All right, so why don't we take a quick break there, and then we're gonna get refills on our water.
Yes.
And then we'll come right back.
All right. Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Like the other day, it was like Stephen Piercy quit Rat. It's like,
Why?
it's like why?
Because of why? Yeah.
Everyone's like, Rat's a band still. It's like when Soundgarden broke up. They hadn't played for like 6 years. And everyone's like, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'll do now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh. So you guys have been playing, or so you have been playing. How long is the Electric Grandmother? The span of time? How many years?
Since 1999, so 15 years.
Holy shit!
Yeah. Fucking A. Yeah.
And so you were playing songs for a while, and then tell us the story of you guys.
Okay. You want to cover that? Cover part of it?
Sure. The internet was but a boy at the time.
Oh.
And this was pretty recently after he had his accident, and he was kind of at home a lot, and his parents are like, well, there's this new thing. Maybe you'd be interested in the internet. And so they got CompuServe, and he was
Classic.
he was
Post Prodigy.
So I think that you were like an early troll too. Is that you like to mess with people a lot?
Oh yes.
And
that, if you get an accident, you ever need to cover. I mean, everybody trolls now, but what a time that was.
and
It
then
was truly a Wild West. It was exciting,
Right.
We all could be anyone we wanted to be.
well, and my father was an academic, so he had the internet, and I had it at home, and he was trying to teach me, what the purpose of having this computer that talked to other computers were. And my first thought is, I'm going to look for naked pictures of Brad Pitt, not because I was a fan specifically. It just seemed like the kind of thing that this new internet would have on it.
Just makes immediate sense, doesn't it?
Right. And so then I started hearing about chat rooms and stuff like that, so I looked for a chat room, and this is at the time where you would join a chat room, and then you would type some stuff and then press send, and then 5 minutes later it would show up, and then somebody might respond to it, but other people have said stuff as well. So I wandered in and started meeting people, and thinking that this was a fun thing to do, and then this guy Clash Boy showed up.
Clash Boy.
Clash Boy.
Clash is my all-time favorite band. So it's Clash Boy.
And mine was Mad Cow Disease, which dates
topical.
it. Yeah.
Topical.
Yeah, it was current then. And we started talking and sort of getting to know each other. And I don't know how do you explain the
Yeah, what happened next?
genesis?
Well,
Don't leave me on this.
Yeah, no, well, we talked for a while, and and I thought she was cool. She, I knew she liked punk rock, and so it was, we bonded over that, and and I think she thought I was cool, funny, dangerous, and handsome.
I mean, that's a.
Well, she
Fair
didn't know I
enough,
was
yeah.
handsome yet, but. But because it was one of those things where it's like, oh, you don't know what we're talking to, but we eventually exchanged pictures and whatnot, and so and then one night I was out with friends, and I felt kind of scorned by this because after my accident, I was trying to get up the nerve to feel like a normal person again. I was kind of trying to get with this girl, and I felt kind of scorned by her, and so I went home and I was complaining to her, and we just sort of, felt this sort of romantic energy, and so then, we went from there, and and we met up.
you missed the phone calls.
Oh,
The very,
okay, well,
very expensive
go ahead
phone
then.
calls. That was when it actually cost money to talk long distance.
Oh, what a time! And where were you at the time?
Oh, I should have mentioned this earlier. I grew up in Hawaii, so I was still in high school at the time.
In Hawaii.
In Hawaii.
What?
Yeah, that's kind of the punchline, I guess.
Yeah,
to
that
the
would have
story
been. We
is
should have started with that.
So anyway, he had a job at Burger King.
Man,
and
as a quick aside, you moving to Hawaii to Columbus, Ohio. You got
yeah,
to run
well,
into that deal.
I mean,
man.
it was it wasn't bad. I was kind of looking for something very different and a cheap place to sort of set up a life, you know.
Sure.
And when you're in graduate school, and that's what I was doing, it just seemed like a very fair thing to do.
And when you had like a dangerous, handsome man waiting
Right,
on the
Yeah.
other side.
Well, yeah, we're sort of mixing our metaphors here because you're talking about grad school. That was after we moved.
way after,
Because
yeah.
like I when growing up near the Cleveland area, like I was like she said I was working at Burger King, and so
Well,
then,
his entire paycheck was going to pay for the expensive phone
Phone
bills
calls,
because that's when,
yeah.
again, it cost money to call people who were not in your same area code, and we certainly weren't. So
yeah,
then,
youngins, you have it
Yeah.
so fucking.
so I would make like $400 a month at Burger King, and I would
380
spend
of which
380 of which would go to phone calls.
phone calls.
And I think it was like 16 cents per minute or something like that for the phone calls. And so
ridiculous.
we talk, for an hour and a half or so every night.
Oh.
Yeah, and so
So then that summer, my aunt and my grandma lived in like outside of Philadelphia. So I said, well, can you come meet me? Not really understanding that it was 10 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours away. 10-hour
to
drive?
Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Well,
about 8.
we went to DC first to see family,
Right.
so I don't know. It's
In any
probably around
case,
there.
it's kind of a long drive. I was like, well, why don't you come and meet me here? Because I'll be kind of nearby. It's Philly.
I mean, at least on your side of the country.
Right.
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So we did. We spent the day together, and it was magical and lovely and awkward because my family was there.
Yeah, that was August '96.
What did you guys do?
We went to South Street. No, we didn't. We went to New Hope.
New Hope,
Sorry.
yeah,
Yeah,
we
we
went to
hung
New
out in
Hope.
New Hope that day, home of Ween. So
Yes. And so yeah, then I spent Christmas with her in Hawaii, and if not for my dad, sort of shelling out the money to do these kinds of things, I don't know, it couldn't have done it. So that was very, very important.
yeah, and then the following June, I went to visit you for a couple of weeks as my graduation present from high
Yeah.
school.
And then in July of 1997, I moved to Hawaii, and we lived there for 4 years before going to Columbus.
And that's where the Electric Grandmother kind of started because, he was coming out of, his hometown where he had a lot of friends and was trying to start bands and everything. And he, was having trouble making friends and everything in Hawaii. And it was a very big change. And so, he was complaining all the time about how he doesn't have any creative outlets and everything. I was like, well, why don't you just do it yourself? Like, what's the matter? You weren't making that much complicated music in the first place. You have a Casio, go to it. And so that's when he started recording Electric Grandmother songs, was in Hawaii about.
Yeah, and the name came about because the name Electric Grandmother is this made-for-TV movie starring the late Maureen Stapleton about a family whose mother dies, and they they find a service.
Is it based on a Ray Bradbury story?
Yes,
I
Thank
Sing the
God.
Body
based
Electric,
on I
yeah.
Sing the Body Electric.
I've
yeah.
been mentioning that, and I thought I made it up for a
No,
while.
no.
No, and it's one of those things like the movie is something that I thought I made up for a while, sort of like Menudo. Like I thought I imagined Menudo for the
No,
longest
there's a
time.
whole country full of those guys.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And now it's like everyone knows who they are, obviously, and treasures them. But
I remember when they had them on, they tried to introduce them to us through NBC Saturday morning cartoons.
that's where I saw
Yeah.
them, and I thought I imagined it.
Yeah, it didn't take because I was like, oh, guess what? None of them speak English, and none of their songs make any sense to you, and you're not gonna like it.
Well, and as we were looking back, I was thinking like I don't know where I was, but I just remember one day thinking like, wasn't there like a group called Menudo? I was like, no, that doesn't make any sense. That couldn't be what happened. And
It means stew.
it
Does
does.
it?
It's a certain kind of stew made up
Weird.
of like a lot of different things.
Oh, because.
It's where Ricky Martin came from.
Right.
Yeah. That's how I think a lot of people,
Eventually remembered.
remembered.
I think Menudo was. I think the reason that they stopped their launch into the United States is I think Ricky Martin left very shortly after Menudo was set to come to the United States, and I think after that one of them got in trouble or something like that because they were like dudes in their 20s pretending to be like 14.
That's a prescription for trouble.
We know how that story ends.
Oh yeah, we've all been there.
I'm a kid.
And and I was saying, that'd be a good name for a band, the Electric Grandmother, and she's like, why don't you make that name for your solo project? And that was it.
So at what point did you start actually, because you said you had done some of the artwork. Was that before you had actually gotten more involved with the music?
Sort of. I mean, it was a very slow, organic, and not to use a pretentious word, but it was a very
Organic
natural.
Isn't pretentious. It's just pretentious people use it.
Not me. So the stage show, which I think we already covered, which was brought on by the Cleveland State radio station asking him if he could perform. And the concept of just standing up there and singing over pre-recorded music, I think he found distasteful. So,
Well, I was just worried about not looking like I was doing enough. I mean, there's like,
That's such a great utilitarian way to describe it, though. I just didn't want to look like I wasn't doing enough.
well, and it was just like,
It's true.
you think about it now, it's funny because a lot of people do that now, and I guess maybe not as many people were doing that, around that time. And I was just worried about people getting shifty or just like looking weird or something like that. But it's like, never mind. It's like a lot of rappers do that. Have always just sort of,
Right.
sit up there. But anyway, you were saying?
So, like Pete said, influenced by Infinite Number of Sounds and actually Bob Mold's solo stuff as well, where there's just something going on behind you. And I've always been a very creative person, but again, not really. What's the word I'm looking for?
Musically inclined?
Not musically inclined, and also kind of unfettered. Like I have all this creative energy, but I don't have really a really good place to put it. I kind of like writing, but only if I have something to write about. I've always enjoyed, drawing and stuff like that, but never really felt moved to sit there and paint a picture. So when the concept of putting something behind him came up, I was like, "Ooh, can I please do that?" And so, we already discussed how we had a slide projector. And so I was in charge of selecting the images that would go onto slides that would project behind him. And so it would sort of be an accompaniment to the music, like either a foil, to sort of say, well, here's something weird while he's talking about something kind of related, or just a very literal sort of interpretation of, again, here's what happened on the TV show Dinosaurs, and here are some pictures that echo that, he's going to say, the dad worked hard and he was always mad. Well, here's a picture of the dad being mad.
That's such an amazing line, too. Because he was.
Thank you.
He was always.
Yeah, he was. And I think a lot of your stuff for the show has become...
It's become more like
literal,
that.
More literal over the
literal.
years.
Yeah.
Because for a while, it's like there wasn't... now we're to the point where she can take screenshots from DVDs using a program, but it's like before it's like
relied on the internet.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so the images weren't as good, and we had this girl who would make actual slides like your grandparents would show.
Sure.
And it was really expensive.
It's like $1.80 a slide or something like
and
that.
so for each song we had four slides. And now it's just every line has something. I mean, it's just.
I'm glad you hit on that a little bit because that's one of the things that we do talk about on the podcast from time to time is the idea of if you have access to everything, you have access to nothing. And so, especially, and I've run into this with my own art. I love doing I love doing art that is based on YouTube videos or going and finding weird videos on the internet. But there's so much material now, and what you can actually craft out of it is not really. I mean, it's hard to find why yours is different than anyone else's, right? Which is why I was saying that it is really about building those relationships with people because it's how you differentiate yourself. But how do you feel? Do you ever miss the days where it was a little harder for you to make something clever in that way, or is it just better and easier?
Yes, because I think some things are lost at having everything at my disposal. And the one that I think of specifically that I kind of will never be able to do anything like this again is the Slides from Miami is Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Where, I mean, I don't want to go into it too much, but where it was at the time, there were not that many screen grabs of Golden Girls episodes on TV. So
believe it or not, that's hard to believe.
So I found pictures of them in other circumstances, and I found pictures of I don't know if you know this song. It's an older one, but the chorus is "Golden Girls is the best. Grab your breasts," which is really inviting.
Sure.
Like it's one of
Enticing.
it's one of the more easy themes to create something entertaining visually for.
Right.
And I remember it like I was yesterday, and I was drinking a lot while I was putting the slides together for that, and I was just sitting there cracking myself up at making the square peg fit into the round hole.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Which I don't have to do anymore.
Right.
Which is nice, and I think it's a cleaner, tighter presentation, but it's not. I don't get that sense of accomplishment as much
Sure.
anymore.
No, I know what
it's
you
a
mean.
fair trade, though.
To all you pretty ladies sitting in the wings, it's high time to take off your britches and things.
Oh, baby, I'm coming for you.
That's right.
Flying first class, that's what I'm worth, it's true. I'll make it matter, gonna shake and shout. I got the magic, you know what I'm talking about.
Picture, picture, and
Rock, rock, rock it, try and make me hot and shake that booty, you know you got me locked. Got your number down and stop. Help me place an order, let's make the bed pop.
Society, gotta make it count. Society, what about you found? Oh, you got some fast. People in a crash. You wanna get out. You wanna make it touch you. You wanna make it touch me. But it ain't gotta be day and night. You gotta wash your feet. Gotta soak you off. Gotta make you drink milk. That means the next time you're gonna tell what? I am fully satisfied.
Ooh, yeah, you like that one, ladies and gentlemen. I bet you wanted to touch all your fucking parts that are good and joyous. You know about it. I can bet you could touch all the parts. The toe, the pinky, every bit of nail. Make some macaroni and cheese and spray that shit all over your bad self.
So about the Golden Girls, though, like, how do you guys feel about the Golden Girls? Because when you and I talked on the phone, we said that there are some shows that you just, it's not that they're good or they're bad, you just like it. Where does Golden Girls rest on that spectrum for you?
Golden Girls
High
is mostly
quality.
good, I think. Like I think much like a show like Family Ties, like there are you're laughing with it mostly, as
Mostly.
opposed to laughing at it. Like, there's some things the parts of Golden Girls that you would laugh at are just maybe some of the cliches or
Sure,
like,
yeah,
just,
yeah.
but nothing so, nothing so harmful.
Right.
Nothing like, you take a show like, Full House, which is one of our favorite mediums, I guess, which we think is the ultimate sitcom core show, like, because it embodies every unself-aware absurdity,
yeah,
there's
everywhere
ever been.
Dead mom,
Yeah.
multiple jobs for Joey and and that other guy.
Jesse.
Yeah.
They
And
kept moving him around the house.
they kept moving around the house, and it's like, and we watch it and we get general pleasure out of it, but it's like, it's not like, watching seasons 3 through 8 of The Simpsons, where it's like, this is like the greatest show ever written.
Sure.
But at the same time, and it's not complete, like, we're sitting there suffering because we're trying to be ironic. I mean,
Right.
that was when I started this whole thing. That's what I was trying to avoid, because I thought that, again, that's real easy to like point and laugh at something, So it's just sort of the full experience of it, And but as far as what we were talking about, like, that's mostly laughing at the absurdity. Whereas, there's very few genuine laughs, like the kind you get from seeing like Dave Chappelle do stand up.
Right.
Where it's just like, he's one of the comedians, and, I'm like rolling on the floor, like watching a show and everything, where it's like, that's kind of few and far between. And that's, where we come in to make up stuff about it.
Sure. It's almost like a form of technical drug almost, right? Because like when you watch a certain kind of show, and I guess an example would be like if you watch like Cosmos with like Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? Even if you're watching it and enjoying it and not laughing or being active, like you're watching it and you're kind of puzzled and you're thinking a little bit about what he's saying. But when you're watching the Full House, and especially like as you start to watch shows again and again, and I noticed this for myself with Seinfeld, like I'm watching it, but I'm almost not even watching it. I'm like just
You're observer.
ingesting
You're
it,
observing
right?
yeah.
And I'm just entranced, and so like that's almost the level at which that show is too, like Full House.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen them so many times, and it's like we revisit them so often, and we talk about. I mean, we'll just sit there, have drinks and just talk about the show while it's going on. And we've recently done it with some friends, bonding over Saved by the Bell.
I'm glad you brought up Saved by the Bell.
Yes.
So that was one of the ones that for me, like I tried to slough through it, and I got all the way to, I want to say, the episode where Zach and Kelly have the very sad prom moments.
Oh.
So I think there were only like 2 episodes after that.
No,
There was
that's
like a whole nother season.
Yeah, at least
There's a
one.
whole world of Saved by the Bell that you could be open up.
Well, the college years, of course, right?
College years, yeah.
So I actually abandoned ship at the Kelly Zach prom moment. Like that was the moment where
You've
I was
had
like,
enough.
I can't do it. I cannot go another episode.
See, man, I could watch every episode of Saved by the Bell.
Even the real early
Every-
Miss Bliss years.
Not so much the early.
I've been
Miss Bliss.
encouraging her because I got those on torrent. I've been encouraging her to watch those, and you better.
No, I'm getting there. We've watched the same like 3 episodes of the Miss Bliss years
The
so many
Slater
times.
guy is such a turd. I don't know. Who,
Yeah, Max Spatamo. I'm friends with him on Facebook, and I try to. He's you know what he's doing right now? He's a referee for minor league hockey in
Okay.
his hometown of Canada. Yeah. Anyway, so he doesn't have, because a lot of times with these auxiliary characters, we have reached out to them like by social media, and they'll like laugh at I'll be like, hey, we loved you in Saved by the Bell, and he's like, one of the guys from Saved, an auxiliary character recently, he tweeted back at me like he was just like laughing.
was
at
it
the whole
Mr.
thing.
Belding's brother?
No, it was a.
Because you should get in touch with that guy.
Yeah, that guy was. Yeah, he was such a dick. To that.
He was
no,
so rude.
yeah, and they were so shitty to Mr.
I
Belding.
hate that episode.
Yeah,
like I
it's,
could
like, poorly
watch it,
lit.
but it's like it makes me so sad because again, it's poorly lit. They are so awful to Mr. Belding, and
After
then
all he's done for them,
and then the other Mr. Belding is so awful to them, and it's just it's heart wrenching.
Doesn't he not show up at the end or something?
Yeah, he
like that?
doesn't show up.
For their rafting
He's practicing
trip.
whitewater
It's
rafting.
so funny because Mr. Belding's like, yeah, that's just what he does. Well, then why
Rod.
did you
It
bring
was
him
Rod,
here, you
right.
asshole?
Yeah.
Oh, whiskey, you're me darling, drunk or sober.
whiskey.
No, Frank Fontana is hilarious. No, you're not wrong about that. But
Well, yeah,
not in the same way that that Kimmy Gibbler is hilarious. It's,
You hit on man. I feel like you guys should find someone at like the Corcoran who would like follow you for their dissertation, right?
Follow somewhere?
From the Corcoran or something like that. Like
The what?
The Corcoran School of Art.
Never heard of it.
Oh, it's like right downtown. It's a very famous. Well, it's not famous anymore. It got closed.
Oh, how do you spell it? Is
the Corcoran, Corcoran.
Oh, okay. Now you spell it. I can.
The Corcoran Gallery is sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what you guys are talking about, the lines that you're talking about drawing, they're very fantastically interesting, right? Because that line, that's something that you can actually track in culture. There was a time that TV sitcoms were very much geared towards a family orientation because that would speak to the people, right? And then at some point, it stopped being
Seinfeld.
It started being about the single people, right?
And we think that Seinfeld sort of ruined sitcom court. Not that I love Seinfeld; it's one of my favorite shows of all time, but again, it's the same thing. It's like it speaks for itself.
Well, the tongue went into the cheek for Seinfeld, right? And if you watch that very first, maybe I would say even 2 or 3 episodes, it doesn't get its own joke yet. It's still in that sitcom area of like, well, George, I'm in this weird situation. The lady's coming in. I don't know what to do, And then 3 or 4 episodes in, it starts to get into that. Well, we're in on the joke,
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like Kramer in those early episodes is just sort of like, look at our hijinks neighbor, but then they sort of like really they understood the character.
They got
and wrote
underneath
the character.
it, They
it's interesting you say that about Seinfeld. It is very subtle. These like how it started and whatnot.
And I think another good example of why sitcom court ends at some point is Roseanne, which is another show that we still watch and holds up today, but it's not. A song about Roseanne would not be funny. There are kids involved, but the focus is really on the parents.
Right.
And again, this is another show that knows what show you're watching.
Yeah.
It's biting and it's the humor is just not innocent.
It's not formulaic enough. It's a show that went out of its way to do something very groundbreaking, and interesting. And again, there's. And I think a lot of it has to do with just the timeline of, history. It's just, you get to a certain point where, things just aren't going to be the same and they're naturally going to evolve, and I think that's an important distinction is just sort of like you couldn't make a show like Full House now without people, winking and the whole thing being ironic. The same way you couldn't have a hair metal band now. Like that band, The Darkness, when they came out. And
or like Steel Panther.
It's like over.
It's like you can't start a serious hair metal band.
Yeah.
No matter what you do.
Right.
And I think that just sort of naturally evolves.
I agree with you fully. And I think that there's an earnestness that's lost, especially nowadays that we all know that there's like a subtext that we can always be like kind of like in on the joke or like winking a nod. But there are things that are happening now that are the hair metals of today.
Yes.
That are being treated, and Miley Cyrus is a great example, I think, of this.
So weird. I was just thinking Miley Cyrus.
So Miley Cyrus is presented, and of course, we all know it's BS, right? But it's presented in this way of like, well, this is earnest art. This is a beautiful thing. And we're supposed to accept it, and no one on a grand scale is just treating it for what it is, which is hair metal, which is, this is idiotic. This just makes no sense. Why would anyone actually watch this? And hair metal at least had a little bit of musical talent behind it. But we're looking back, we're laughing at the clothes and the outfits, right? But now, 20 years from now, when we look at Miley Cyrus, like they will, of course, laugh at the hair and the outfits. But there was a lack of talent there, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I think like you look back on Nirvana 20 years later and you get like this genuine thrill,
Right.
I think for, I guess, fans. I mean, there's people out there that don't like Nirvana, but like at the same time, there's enough people to, validate it.
Right.
And, I mean, I for one was a big fan, but at the same time, no one's really in any serious way pointing and laughing at it,
right?
Because it was very genuine,
Well, they're not laughing at the talent, right? Because like Weird Al, he did that great parody song, and it was about the mumblingness and about the video itself and stuff like that. And those things we can always make fun of because those are zeitgeists, right? Those are spirits of the times.
And
the talent is timeless.
Oh yeah, and then one thing that we always talk about that I think is, a lot of times people, is over their heads, not not in a obnoxious way. I don't mean to sound that way, but like I think you can laugh at something, look outside and laugh at something, but at the same time respect it.
True, totally.
And I don't think a lot of times people think that they can do that.
Right.
I mean, like even sacred institutions, like I don't know, like for instance, David Bowie's one of your favorite musicians, but we can laugh at some of the things he does, or I mean,
or cringe at it.
Yeah, same with
Man, it
Nirvana.
fell to
Weird
earth,
Al
man.
was funny, so it's like Nirvana was hilarious, and
Weird Al himself is a great example. Like Weird Al, I find him very funny, but there are songs that just make you like,
yeah, they're not all good. And
not all
I
good.
mean, at the same time, it's like it's not an all or nothing thinking. It's
Right.
like, and I think that takes the pressure off. Someone who's doing music and trying to be comedic and whatnot. It's like you can't win them all.
Right.
And I mean, and overall, the whole point is, do you just like this for what it is overall? And I
Right.
mean, it's like things don't have to always be perfect.
well, and I think that's what makes your music different too. Is that so? You guys, like we said before, like you're not mocking it. You're just you're celebrating it in a way, and
Yeah.
you're talking about it in a very realistic way, right? That is very different than someone who's outwardly mocking something. And even if you think Full House is bad art, or even if you think All in the Family is bad art, and for me, All in the Family, like that's one of the worst sitcoms ever. Like, and that's just more from a context point of view. Like maybe during that time it was actually quite good, but now it's just a racist old white guy, making racist jokes. But I think that whether or not you find it good or bad, if you make fun of it, you are making fun of someone's art. If they did it for money or if they did it because they just wanted to, that is someone's piece of art. And if you're mocking it, you're mocking art itself, even if it didn't take that much effort.
What was that movie that Sam Campos and his immortal line? A lot of people worked really hard on that.
Oh, we were watching. It was Godzilla, not Godzilla, King Kong.
King Kong, yeah.
King Kong.
Which the modern one,
The Peter Jackson one.
Yeah.
where it was kind of people snickered at it and everything, and our friend who has been involved in like high level. Not high level as in he's so important, but the technical.
He's really not.
The technical aspects of
Like the art behind
production.
the movie.
Yeah.
He's very, familiar with that whole process because he does it.
Right.
You
He said, a lot of people worked really hard on that movie. And that made me so sad. I didn't hate that movie. I'm one of the few people who didn't hate that movie. But, the fact that there are all these people who are putting through like a lot of time and a lot of effort on something that is just awful.
I know.
It happens. I mean, you said dinosaurs. I'm sure a lot of people worked really hard to make dinosaurs
But you
reality.
You experience that too, and I do too. Like when you work at a job, and I definitely had this in my last job. You're not into it, or sometimes you're not into it, and you're not into what the widgets that they're making, right? And so you're working really hard, and you want to take pride in what you're working on, and you want to get praise for it. But you're working on something that you really hate.
Don't care about.
Right? But your work you're prideful of. But it really starts to fuck with you after a while, right? Because at some point you're like, well, this is the output, And if I'm not working earnestly towards something that I truly think is magical, well, then I probably shouldn't be doing it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like, that's the nice thing about, our band is that we don't expect any money. It's nice when it happens, but we don't expect it. We expect to take a loss. That's why we have our full-time jobs. I mean, like, again, if the opportunity arose where you'd be like, do this, full-time, it'd be hard to say no. But at the same time, we don't have to compromise anything. We don't have to, it's all our rules, and we don't have to, suffer to do it, to pay bills with it, because that's what our other jobs are for.
Well, that's the last question I'm going to ask you guys, because that is something that we're very curious about. So if someone did say to you, okay, now you have to use Electric Grandmother to be your living, you have to make money at it to survive to the level at which you're comfortable, what would change? What would be different? Like, what would you do differently tomorrow?
I don't know. It just, I mean, the idea that, we would be able to sustain a living off of it just seems kind of out there. But at the same time, I guess what I would do is, I don't know, try to relax, first and foremost. And, I mean, because the important thing about Electric Grandmother is that I don't go into, we don't go into studios and we don't have these songs that we wrote and then we're going to take it in the studio and do it. It's like all these things that we just do very slowly and methodically, and a lot of times I'll have a song where I'll have like a few months to think about it, and I was like, that's really stupid, and I'll go back and change it, and so it would be really hard to adjust in that manner.
God, that's such a good answer, because
Thank
it's so
you.
true. No,
But what's one thing, if you had to think about, like, what's one thing that would be different?
I guess we'd play out more.
Well,
But I don't think that you would change the way you write, because
No.
you've been doing it for 20 years
yeah,
now.
and I mean, I can't imagine like because I rush myself enough as it is sometimes, and I can't imagine feeling rushed and then like putting out something, because I feel like I used to rush more, with the songs, and I can't imagine, feeling so rushed to the point where it's like I put out something and then it's like, what, I wasn't done with that, and again, it's the whole idea of like being signed to like a major label or anything, that's sort of ancient history.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if that exists anymore.
Yeah, it barely does, and it's a bad investment if it is, and it's I'm a very stubborn person, and so like if I get, if I were to feel agitated by like, this pressure of having to make money for it would be really hard, I mean, it'd be like a tempting thing to do, because then I could, idealistically, the idea is you could spend all your time on your art, but at the same time, it's like, it's kind of almost a fantasy world. Like, I feel like for me, I almost need some structure and balance, because when, I was unemployed, but at the same time, we were heads above water. We were making it okay, but it was just a lot of anxiety, and I make music when I'm happy.
Right.
I'm not Morrissey or, Robert Smith. I don't go in, and use that like a lot of people do,
Sure.
Like Kurt Cobain or whoever, like to use that negative energy. It's like I'm the exact opposite. Like I just crumble, and I can't, it's only when I'm like feeling good and confident in my abilities, that I can be more productive.
Sure.
And so that would be a hell of a lot of pressure. I really, it's really hard to even imagine what that would be like.
No, I can hear that. I mean, and the first thing that you said is something that a lot of times the bands go to first, which is I would have to tour all the time.
Yeah.
And that is hard for people to fathom. And because if you tour all the time, that also means you have to have something to be touring on.
Yeah.
Which means, like you were saying, you have to be making a record at a certain pace.
Yeah. And we have, friends that, do make their living off it and tour all the time. And there's part of it that sounds appealing. There's part of it that also sounds very, exhausting, and just a lot of pressure. And I've always been kind of a nervy guy, an anxious fellow, and it's like it would it'd be one of those things where I would, if they said, here it is and you could do it, I would do it just for the reason of like, just knowing what would happen, but for no other reason. But it would be pretty tough, because it's doing a show is kind of tiring, and we both like to get liquored up on stage, so so that takes
It's
its
kind of
toll
hard.
after a
I mean, it's
while.
hard enough to get shows in this area. It really is.
Yeah, and it's hard to book shows. It is hard to book shows out of town, and we've never been known enough to the point where it's like we would get like a manager or an agent or anything like that, or because I think a lot of people are under the impression, and I think it goes the same as far as record labels, that anymore you just send your demo, or you send you introduce yourself to a booking agent or a label, and they'll just take you on. It's like, that's not really how it works. It hasn't worked that way for a while. It's like you have to have a need
Right.
for that kind of thing, and and again, it's like that balance. Like I'm pretty content with the how we do it now, because we very, very infrequently have to do shows where like nobody's there,
Right.
and that's it's a lot of energy put into
So in terms of what it is that DC and the DMV area, because do you guys ever play Baltimore or in that area?
We did last week. Yeah.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
And so in and around the area, what can the area do to continue to feed you? Because obviously they can go to your shows and they will continue to do that. But what else can they do to feed you and make you happy and make you producing the art that we love?
One thing that DC has that we didn't have before is kindred spirits. That we're starting to get to know a few bands that are from and around the area that have sort of like this, music first, comedy second, sort of ethos about them. That's it's fun to do shows with them because they're fans like us and we like them, and it's to actually do a show that's cohesive and makes sense is kind of like a new thing for us.
No.
Yeah, we have a hard time finding allies. Like, we have some allies in Columbus, like several and everything. But, but I mean, things happen. The bands break up and, people move on. But we've always stuck around, and we have some kindred spirits like in other cities too. Like our friends, Weird Paul Rock Band in Pittsburgh, and then we Take No Damage and Columbus,
we've had, but they've come and gone.
Yeah, they've come and gone.
But this being, just the numbers game here.
The Electric Grandmother remains.
Yeah. Johnny Rotten said, rock and roll will never die, but you fucks will. Electric Grandmother will live forever. But anyway. Cat Scan, we play a lot of shows with them, and they're really, really good fellas, and we've already formed a kindred spirit with them, and we were mentioning Hip Hop McDougal and Crunkwitch, and I mean Crunkwitch isn't from here, but Hip Hop McDougal.
Crunkwitch is from New Hampshire.
They're from Maine.
Maine?
Yeah,
that is some wild
it's
shit.
even better.
and there's some other we've had other bands that we've become friends with, but as far as she was saying, music first, comedy second, which is a very good way to put it. I think as far as what DC can do, I don't know, send more people, send more bands.
I mean, it really is, and I would think that the thing that we've heard people say is don't just come to the shows. Can you bring a friend?
Yes.
Or two? Buy alcohol. Yeah. Thanks so much for being on the show, guys.
Oh, thank you for having us.
That was like a movie.
I saw a movie called Space Jam. I didn't know a person could move like that. Michael played basketball, but he was too good, so he played baseball. I like guys so hard. I would never let him see me cry.
Michael Jordan, Al Capone, Woody Woodpecker, Fred Flintstone.